to galacticconnection.com, one of the most popular blogs on the World Wide Web today for alternative news. Stay tuned for the latest information on our world shift from enslavement to galactic involvement, as well as current intel on any blockages impeding us from our sovereign birthright. Knowledge and self-mastery are key at this time. Our commitment is to present you with the latest breaking conspiratorial articles, off-world messages, exopolitics, cutting-edge technologies and sciences, and also an ever-significant intertwining of spiritual support and metaphysical scope that one needs to dive down the rabbit hole in search for truth with balance. We are truly on the horizon of a new golden age filled with the promise for more love, worldwide peace, and accelerated intuitive skills, where every living being can exist in cohesion and abundance. It is whatever we envision and dream this new world to be. I say to you now, let's redefine the new world to the beginnings of our own precious heaven on earth. Galactic Connection is here to provide the pulse of Mother Earth through an eclectic range of interviews each Tuesday afternoon from 3 to 4:55 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Station 2 on BBS Radio, expanding your perspectives on how we can once and for all take back our freedoms, our joy, and our connection with our mighty I Am presence. Our intention remains true to connect hearts and minds everywhere in order to obtain global unity and galactic and universal acceptance. Our discussions will continue to cover anything to do with galactic society and our involvement with our galactic brothers and sisters. Our guests are experts in their fields, and our radio shows have been coined as some of the most thought-provoking out there. In addition to our daily blog, which runs 365 days a year, we also offer a realm of healing services such as our world-renowned implant removal processes, our spiritual past life clearings, our galactic violet ray alchemy from Alexandra, who shares in the lineage of Merlin, and other cutting-edge healing technologies. Check our site out at galacticconnection.com now, sending you a wave of light, love, and inspiration, and a personal hug and thank you for listening to our Galactic Connection radio show and visiting our blog today. Hey everybody, this is Alexandra Meadors of galacticconnection.com, and I have just a really quick, very important update today with Tori Smith. We've been talking behind the scenes, and there's so much activity going on that we feel we really need to share with the world as to what is happening behind closed doors, especially regarding the child trafficking situation around the world. Now, as many of you know, Tori Smith has the capability to be very multidimensional, very present at the time of these ceremonies, and has done an immense amount of work to try to at least assist getting the soul back into the realm in which it belongs, rather than being captured and hijacked by those that perform these satanic rituals. That's one of many things that he does. But today what I want to do is I want to really hone in and allow Tori to give you an update on what he has been seeing in the last couple of months. So thanks, Tori, for being so spontaneous this morning. And if I didn't say this already, it's October 9th, 2015. So good morning.
Thanks. Yeah, good morning, honey. Because the dates are important because the numbers constantly keep changing. And it's been really rough for me lately. However, that pales in comparison to what these children are going through.
I bet.
And I really feel like I'm going through this all myself. So I had, why not do an update and spend a few minutes? Because last weekend, 579 children were gang raped and murdered. And this is going on over and over again. And people say, well, how can you know that? Well, the first thing is, this has been going on. I'm in month 45 of dealing with these child traffickers, and that fails. I know Kevin Anna has been fighting child traffickers for 20 years. I couldn't imagine. Oh, Mother and Father God, that's it. I can't. There's no way I can go on 20 years. But what happens to me is it's usually the men who've raped me, because there's a strong connection, albeit a very negative one. But when they're off in these child trafficking locations, it super activates. Like a couple of weeks ago, well, it was with 108 children. I was just mowing the lawn, and all of a sudden it hit me, and I started crying. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, God, not again. Because they had put a block on me so I wouldn't be able to pick up on things as clearly. It's almost like dumping a tar on top of my head. Wow. Well, they do that to everybody. They don't want anybody talking to heaven. They just really don't. Because we can go and access information from heaven. We can contact the universal truth. We can go to places like the Hall of Records. The Hall of Justice is where all the videos of these men raping children are kept. And
that's a good point, Tori, because a lot of people misinterpret that sense of that kind of tar, gooey, like black veil that's put over them as an implant, when in actuality it's an overlay. It's to keep you amnesic and also disconnected. But anyway, go ahead.
And there's many reasons that I've seen. Obviously, I can't speak for them of why they do this, but what I've seen is virtually all these men are doing this in service to their gods, Lucifer and Satan. Okay, well, in August, things got a little testy around here, and I tell the universe, I don't even know these words that come out of my mouth. I could never say it, on in public, what I say to these people. And it had a good effect because they were all screaming for Satan. Because Satan and Lucifer were the last of the Dracos. There were 1,738 Dracos, and they were the last two to go. They were the last two to be arrested and removed. And in August, they were all screaming for Satan to come and protect him, because there's a lot of people that, I think it's down to like only 3% believe now that Satan and Lucifer are still here, because they're not. And there's been shapeshifters pretending to be Satan and Lucifer, making all these promises. And that's what happened when Dick Cheney's clones were murdered. And we went through a thing where in that lunar eclipse, for some reason, every clone on the planet had died or expired. But see, they're not real people, so you can say they were killed or whatever. They ceased to exist.
Right.
And it was right in that lunar eclipse, the blood moon. It's like this gamma radiation is coming in from this star, and it's basically caused a lot of the lower entity people to become, very, because they're, you know what I mean? Because we know the universe runs on love. It's powered by love. Love is everything and everywhere. Yeah. But we have this dark entity faction going on here on Earth, where human children are their food and sex toys. And another reason they do it is not just to get things from Satan and Lucifer, or what they call in service to their gods, who don't even exist anymore, because they went into the uncreated mass in heaven, in Temple of Father God. And actually, you can go see where they are. You can just go to the Temple of Father God, bilocate, or do outer body, and you go back to the altar, and there's a big curtain on the wall, and you just open the curtain, and you can see sometimes faces. It's like a soup of unconditional love and tranquility. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the religious version of, oh, you were a bad person, you're going to suffer in hell forever. If it comes to the point, well, Satan and Lucifer were they were put in the uncreated mass, ceased to exist. However, as a spirit or as a person or entity, they basically are just floating in a soup of unconditional love. So it's not like anything, and that's where they'll stay.
Is that what they call second death?
I don't know. I haven't heard that term.
Really?
Or not.
Okay.
But there's 39 locations here in America, and 2 of them are in London. I think it's called South Essex Road, or one's underneath Essex Road in London, and the other one's at a military base. Most of the ones we have here are, in major cities, and most of them are all connected with high-speed rail underneath. And so it enables people to go, well, like between Indianapolis and Denver. That's why they built those 2 new airports. That new airport in Denver is basically, they're running the country out of that location. And then also there's a mega CIA base at the bottom of Lake Geneva, right around France and Switzerland. It's closely associated with that. What's it called? The Hadron Collider or whatever. This thing at CERN.
CERN.
But just to give you an idea, this was the first, I think this was the one August 9th. but like 25 children in Denver, 27 Grand Rapids, 32 in New Jersey, 46 at the Arlington DARPA CIA MyLab in Arlington, Virginia, 56 in Langley, Virginia. They have their own MyLab, 49 in New York City, 17 in Boston, 38 children in Wilmington, Delaware, 29 in Atlanta. And then for some reason, 4 of them, Alabama, Crawfordsville, Texas, Houston, and Dallas. That weekend, 79 children total were gang raped for all those and then murdered at all those 4 locations. And it was 36 in Las Vegas, 38 in Los Angeles, and 48 in New Mexico. And people could say, well, how do you know for sure? Because remote viewing is not even on the table for me anymore. I can't witness these because one of the first most intense experiences I had was, it was in Arlington, Virginia in 2013 in January, where I was raped by Obama while they murdered 54 children in the room. And it's become easier for me to talk about this. It's been, 2.5 years or whatever since this has happened. But in that, it became a major connection for me. Okay, so when I'm scanning, I'm going to say, okay, well, how many children are in my lab? Okay, instantly, 17 children came up. And if I had time, I could go through and start telling about these children. And I kept notes because I get so upset that it's almost like I lock up. And then so many times they attack and I start shaking and going through some other things. But how couldn't you get upset about all these children? I just think most people don't know. And then there's also I just found a friend of mine's child attempted suicide. And it was because chemicals in the food, air, and water, combined with he was eating a huge amount of adrenalized meat, which he's very sensitive to. That's when they terrorize the animals right before they kill them, so they're loaded with adrenaline. God. And those also contain archontic programs. Oh my now, the Insectians are all gone. The Archons are all gone because they were removed from our solar system. As a matter of fact, I talked to Solari. It's hard for me to pronounce her name. Solari, I think is her name. And she's the embodiment soul for Saturn. And she confirmed with me again that all the Archons and all the dark entities are out of Saturn and out of the Saturnian system because a lot of moons in Saturn have life living inside them. Yes. And she said, but a new colony of benevolent beings have moved in. And so that was good because I wanted to know, because the Archons are the ones that did all the medical testing on most of us. And it's not just me. I found out they're doing this to like 3,000 people, that real heavy duty stuff, like testing the paralyzation weapons. Oh. And, oh my God, they have so many weapons. Sexualization weapon where you go from, I can't imagine having sex to you're so crazy horny. It's just horrible what they do to you.
And I just want to remind the audience, he has the absolute capability to see this because his psychic, or as Randy Kramer would say, his psionic abilities are laser beam clear. This started for you in 2012, right? Didn't you tell me that?
Well, reading DNA, actually, the first time I saw DNA was in October of 2009.
2009, okay.
And then it was in May of 2010 that I started looking at people and realizing we're not all human. And a lot of people
see beyond that veil.
Yeah, and that started coming up like, okay, this guy's 42% reptilian, the rest human, or 58% reptilian, the rest human.
Okay.
And because I had been doing research work on the reptilians and things online, so it was really confusing because when I was looking at a lot of these blends, they were benevolent people. Albeit they're connected, they call it the hive mind, but there are a lot of benevolent reptilian humans. It's the ones who are in control that are the bad guys, so to speak. And I went on, I Googled images for the top Forbes CEO executives.
This is mine.
And right after the next, it was like picture, okay, this guy's murdered, this guy's raped 20 kids and murdered 2. This guy's raped and murdered 34 kids. Or raped 34 kids and killed 3 of them. And it was just picture after picture after picture.
And these are the CEOs
and another one I did that with.
You're talking Fortune 500 companies.
Yes.
You know, we've read about
this.
this, you know, Tori, we've read about this with David Icke's information, but to hear somebody that actually sees it, that's able to scan them and physically see them, you know, is another thing.
Yeah, well,
So,
I wouldn't recommend anybody else
no.
to do this. And if you're just going to take them on, you have to know that they can come into our homes. What they have is, it's like a video game. They put on these goggles and they're hooked up to this machine, okay, and their astral body comes into people's homes. Lately they've all been hiding around listening to their wives and their girlfriends talk about how, because they want to know if they've figured it out yet, what they're doing. So they've been in 89% of our homes in America. 89, almost 9 out of 10 homes have had the government or Illuminati, New World Order, whatever you want to call them. It's not really our government. They're a bunch of criminals in our government. But they just go around and go to people's homes, but they can take all kinds of weapons with them. This technology was given to them by the Zetas, or the Archons, which is a generic term for ruler. But the Archons that we knew in our solar system were the ones that lived inside Saturn, and they were insectian. A lot of them were non-physical entities, and some of them were. And it's funny how the insects had all the technology. You'd think, you know, that just blew me away. But anyway.
You know, Tori, you're saying 89% have visited our homes. That just takes the lack of sovereignty to a whole new level. You know,
yeah, especially when people can just come in and rape you. That's really
on the other plane. And you know, the work I do, I see the shock and trauma come through. And when I hunker down and I go a little bit deeper, it's typically that kind of stuff that's going on without their conscious awareness.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the thing, is most people aren't aware. And I think I pulled up I don't have it down. I think it was 100,000. I always say that wrong. 158,000 have been raped this way. But I'm not sure that it's happening anymore, because I think the vibration has gone up. Either they're still can rape, they just don't do it to me anymore, because I have a big mouth and I go around telling everybody. Which is funny, because my spirit guide, Victoria, you know, we went back to, because I had prepared a little Indiana report, because Indiana is a major every state in the country, it seems like, is a major child trafficking state. It's just that I'm connected to these people. And my spirit, Victoria, goes, why don't you just send a letter to the governor's wife and tell her what you've seen? And I did. Of course, nothing became of it, but it made me feel better. I was like, I regret to inform you, your husband's raped 88 children and murdered 8 of them. His name is Mike Pence. He's a typical dark entity, reptilian human. And it's just on and on with it. It was that was a 7-year-old girl that Child Services brought up from Tennessee, and they delivered her to the Indianapolis airport. 2 CIA agents picked her up, and then there's 2 CIA agents that rape children with Mike Pence on a routine basis, and there's also 3 state troopers that do. But there's 7 state troopers in Indiana who are pedophiles that they've gang raped and murdered a child. They've raped 17 girls total. But one of them that really brought them together was all 7 of these state troopers gang raped one child, and then they killed her. It was a 12-year-old girl named Cassidy, and her mom used to call her Mama Cass. And the cops, they buried her in the southwest side of Indy in the hills by the trees and the water. And that's what came up for me, because when I connected to the girl's DNA, it's like what's happened to me is I've done this so many times that, and what I've learned is our DNA can communicate independently of our subconscious, ultra-conscious, or regular consciousness state. So there's another level of information that's going on there, and a lot of times it'll just pop up. You know, the child's age, the child's name, and then information of how they got to be where they are. Most of these kids are coming from undocumented citizens. That's the #1 reason why the government wants to have open borders, because they always have a fresh supply of children.
Oh my God.
And most of these children lately have been Mexicans. And like in DARPA is the one, DARPA and the CIA are the ones running these, but they're owned by the Bush family. and that's in service to their, well, all the wars are basically about human sacrifice and money. But if you have $40,000 to $43,000, you can go in and have sex with a child if you want at DARPA. And they love to get that money because that gives him money for, 10 children, that's $430,000. There's a lot you can do with that. So then they have all this funding coming in from these children. It's a wholesale business for DARPA and CIA, and it's hundreds of children. Like I was saying, it was 579 last weekend, then 313, the blood moon, they killed them all right in that lunar eclipse. And another thing that happened with that killing was that I was so upset because of the 108 children. This is like 3 weeks ago.
Tell them that story, Tori. Tell them that story. They need to hear this. Seriously.
Mean why?
How you extract, about the souls.
Oh, yeah, because all those, there's a process. This is one of the major reasons, too. This is probably reason number 3 or whatever, if we're going down the list. The Reptilians have this technology, and I think it was given to them, but because the Archons used to do a lot of soul manipulation. That way they could take a soul of a person when they died as a grandparent and put it back in the same family. Like Prescott Bush. Jeb Bush's son is Prescott Bush, the same one that was Hitler's best friend, the one that gave Hitler $300 million.
Ew.
The Archons put him back and put him in this kid, Jeb Bush's son. Who, and by the way, I think Jeb Bush is up to like 87 children he's murdered.
God.
And so when I was taken to my lab, because they never expected me to live ever. I keep hearing that. And they're like, Jesus Christ never did all this stuff to us. I keep hearing all these comments from the dark side. But
this is your mission, though, Tori.
It is
You're
now, yeah. It really is now.
You're the only person on the planet that can withstand what you. When I see what you have emotionally, physically, spiritually gone through, I break down and cry.
Oh, I'm
Seriously,
sorry.
I can't imagine the life you live, and people just don't get it when you've been called. When you get the call and you just know what you know, and you have no other choice but to do what you have to do because you came here to do it. And that's what you're doing.
I didn't come here to do that.
Yeah, and I want
this is
everybody
something
to know
that popped up.
It's kind of a grave report right now, but we do have some other information at the end about a little bit more of a silver lining. But go ahead.
So the third thing is, and this is probably one of the most important ones to them, I'm sure, is because normally when we die, if we have over 51% sacred light in our DNA, we create the tunnel to go home. That's why it's so important to have, if you want to go to heaven, have at least 51% sacred light, because we are the ones that generate the tunnel to go back to heaven when we die. If we're not, the Lords of Karma put us in the womb of a mother where we can have another chance to serve a negative karma. But what they have the technology of doing is somehow, because see, when the child is so traumatized and can you imagine being raped by Jeb Bush? How horrible, that fat, disgusting.
I can't even imagine, because it's a blood fest too. They're totally into blood, it's just.
Yeah, and a lot of times they bite. Like one of my friends was a little girl named Sarah, and while Obama was raping her in the basement of the White House, he was biting her neck and ripping the flesh off of her neck. Because they just love to do that. They want to destroy divinity. They want to destroy, and they love to pick on children who have a high sacred light, like Christians. They love Christian children. Those are one of their favorite ones. Kill. Okay, so what they do is they have some kind of technology. The souls of the children can miss the tunnel of light because they're too traumatized. And so they might just pull off of the body, and their soul will be standing there looking at their body.
Okay.
So they're even more traumatized. The Reptilians have some kind of technology where they can capture that soul and either put it in a container, almost something like Ghostbusters, but evil. Instead of getting an evil ghost, they get a good child and they put it like in a container. Or and then later they put those inside of people, like Dick Cheney, or the child trafficker, one there because the Pope, Jorge Bergoglio. They somehow get the souls of the children inside them for some reason. I would assume it's power, the energy of like having having trapped souls
Yeah.
in horrible pain and suffering or whatever. I don't know all the reasons why or I don't know how it works, but I do know it does.
There has
Because
to be
that
some
morning,
specific technology to do that, right, Tori?
yeah,
I was going to say.
yeah, it has to be technology. I don't see how anyone could do that. Well, the Dracos, the 1,738 of them, they had powers that were unimaginable to us. They were behind every what they call terrorist attacks in this country, like the school shootings and stuff like that. It was always the Dracos right behind them.
Mm.
And they would, as whoever it was, the patsy of the moment was killing the people, then they would connect to pull that energy off of them. And that's what, so, and then of course these continue today, because they're trying to get that energy boosted back up, because we've transfigured them over and over and over again, meaning we take the demonic energy out of them, God transfigures it, and it goes to wherever God wants it to go. I never, even bother to ask where it goes or whatever.
But it just keeps coming, right? There's just so much of it. Yeah.
And then the weekend, it was 108 children, and a very public person came out and said that mass arrests were going to start occurring on that Friday.
Yes.
Okay, these are the very same children. For some reason, they did not get arrested. And then in the next 2 days, they went on to gang rape and murder 108 children. I was so furious. I don't think I've ever been as angry as I ever have in my life.
I remember that.
And it was some kind of a trick or some kind of false information or something didn't work out. I'm really not sure yet. To me, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But God has told me a couple days ago, God said there is a divine plan. And at least the souls of the children, as far as I know, as of yesterday, we had cleared everybody out. But like to go around these children,
wait. Don't just brush that off, because people want to hear this part. What Tory did was those 108 children, their souls were captured by Cheney, and then you were able to extract them, which took a lot out of you. You were able to extract them and send them up to the light and free them so that they weren't captured and trapped there with Dick Cheney, right?
Yes.
I mean,
and
that's huge.
This has happened over and over again. Like the list that I rattled off before, he had I don't forget, it was 16 out of 39 MyLabs with 521 children. And what he did was he went to one MyLab, he extracted all the souls, 25, put them in him. Then right after that, because I was playing along, because he would go to MyLab after MyLab, putting all these souls in him. And as soon as it would happen, we did it in the usual way. I do this with Mother God. And the first thing I do is I create a tunnel of light completely encompassing the person.
Good.
And then I connect to the souls of the children, and extracting them is like pulling them out. And it's just like, it starts going, boom, 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 boom. And when they have a lot of children, it starts going faster, like a high vibration. And then I can see the children's souls just going out of his body up into light. But it's not just him. I've got a whole list of people that I pulled. John Brennan, Elizabeth Windsor, they call her the Queen of England, her husband. Jorge Bergoglio, I pulled 3 children out of him not too long ago. And 3 CIA agents, I pulled a 27 total of children out of them. And I pulled 6 children out of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was one of JFK's shooter. He and George Bush Sr. are the ones that shot JFK. And I just pulled another 12 out of George Bush Sr. The FBI director, I pulled 6 children out of him.
Good God.
So that morning I woke up, not just, I witnessed, when you connect to the DNA of either the killer or the child, it's right there. It's in your face. It is just all over it. And witnessing these children get murdered every weekend, it's just, I've just gone, I consider myself totally bonkers at this point.
Oh.
Because it just seems like some people are saying, oh yeah, well, someday we're going to have mass arrests and everything will be lovely. Well, that's not today, and all these children keep getting killed.
Sure.
And
it's like, what do we do about it? And the other thing I wanted to ask you was, when these souls are extracted from these beings, how do they respond?
Well, I don't know, because they're in a separate location, and I disconnect right after that.
To the soul itself and just focus on that part of it.
Yeah, because I don't, number one, I don't believe anything. Sometimes they have told me the truth, but I don't ever believe anything anybody tells me, really. If somebody tells me something and I find it intriguing, I just go look it up. Basically, I go read the evidence to see
You're
if they're
talking
telling
about
me.
intel, like stuff on the internet or projected dates for mass arrests, that kind of thing?
Well, I was talking more about the specifics of the murders,
Of a murder, okay.
and rather than what's coming up in the future, because
Got it.
all I have is my faith in God at this point, and but good things do happen. I think it's probably not. They call it laughing at someone's pain, but I'm sorry, to men who rape and murder children, I don't care if we're laughing at their pain. I think it's, but the child trafficker Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis, he murdered. He killed it was 1981st child that he killed. Now, he doesn't always rape the children that he kills because he likes the new fresh-born babies that haven't been vaccinated yet. That's their favorite ones to kill and eat. They partially eat these babies for a list of reasons of their own. But so he hasn't raped all the children that he's murdered. So I don't know if that's an important point.
Do you have any information as to what happened when he arrived here in September?
Well, we were working on him right away, and we've boosted up this thing. What we're doing it's called the Ray of Divine Justice, and we're putting that in people two ways. And what I could do, I could if I do it for you, I say I invoke the Ray of Divine Justice into every molecule, cell, DNA, energy particle, and waves, subatomic particles and waves, and the spaces in between, in the mind, body, and soul of whoever. Okay?
I felt that.
And I could say also, I invoke into Alexandra the ray of divine justice into the core of purity pulsating in each and every electron of her mind, body, and soul. So we just covered everything. And
can you put that in writing so people can start supporting your work?
Oh, sure.
I think everybody's going to want to do this. We have got to stop this insanity.
That would be a good way to general, because if people start going after individuals and they don't have the protection that they need or whatever, they just kill them. So I would
please, everyone listen to Tori. If you want to step up into a mission, and this is something that's of a great passion to you, you must learn. If you don't already have this ability or technique or experience, you must learn how to do these sorts of things. So don't go out there half-cocked and think you're going to take on, these guys, because it's extremely dangerous, okay? This is why, actually, I only get, out of all the people around the world, I think I've only had maybe a dozen that have written into me that do the type of work, not even exactly like Tori, but similar to Tori. So this is a very special type of ability. But what we can do, Tori, is support you with what you're talking about with the ray of divine justice.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And then other times when they're in a circle, what God's doing is it goes through my head, heart, and hands, and it's almost like they're coming out like golden snowflakes, going to every molecule, cell, DNA, and everything down the list. And they're being showered, and a lot of times they think they're being showered with gold that is going to help them and create more money for them, but little do they know. And then we're doing this other thing where God's decided to create, I'm creating this ball of light, and it's like a cobalt bluey purple. And what it does is it goes into the people when they come in, and then first it creates a wave like a ripple in a pond. Like when you drop a stone, the wave goes out, and then it goes to like a globe. And they're like, well, what are you doing to us? And I said, well, right now you're broadcasting your behavior to everyone. And they're like, well, what does that mean, I'm broadcasting my behavior? And I said, that means that everywhere you go, everyone's going to know what you've done.
Wow, fantastic.
And then that's a really heavy programming going on. So because I believe that we are in a wave of, the truth coming out.
Well, and you know what, Tori, I think it's great that you're showing to the world that, it's not just about sharing this kind of grave information, because I know it's upsetting to all of us. I mean, how can it not be? But at the same time, he really is trying to come up with solutions. He's constantly trying to see what he can do to counteract the programming and the madness. And whatever we can all do to support that, please let us know.
Well, one of the good things happened is God took out 5 satellites on Sunday. That was a really heavy traffic day around here, too. I somehow was connected to, because I knew I was being bombarded with this energy that caused extreme amount of pain. And so I just connected to the source, and I found out it was in a satellite. The weapons were in a satellite. So, and then God sent this energy through me, and I could see the satellite, I think it was symbolic, just completely blow up. And there were 4 of them. And then it wasn't good enough. It was still something going on, and it turns out the Russians had one too, because I really despise Vladimir Putin, because
really?
especially
because everybody's raving about him and how he's really calling the United States and Israel on the carpet, and that he's one of the few leaders of the world that may have a possibility. But I always love what other people say, which is, if you are a world leader, you cannot be trusted. Period.
I didn't trust him at all. He came in on Sunday after the satellite was blown up, because he used to tell me, "Oh, I'm different than the others. I'm not like them. I'll prove it to you. I'll show you how different I am from the other ones." I'm like, "Really? Because you've done a Luciferian human sacrifice, and that's why you're president now, because he killed a child in service to Lucifer." Okay, he is out. He's basically made being gay illegal, which to me is so ridiculous. But he's out. You know how many men that dude's had sex with? He's out running around every night having sex with the dude, and then showing up like a typical American Republican saying, "Oh, gays are evil, gays are immoral." And it's like, really, you broke into a dude's house and raped him, sodomized him. There go my language. And then you turn around and say it's immoral to be. I think it's a reflection of the mirror, that he's so deeply ashamed of what he's doing.
I'm glad you brought that up, Tori, because in my opinion, it is so obvious to me now, after all the research I've done, that it's a rare moment to come across a male politician who hasn't performed homosexuality or participated, I guess is the right word.
Well, everybody calls them gay. I call them bisexual.
Yes.
Because gay men, number one, don't rape and murder children.
Exactly.
Gay men aren't married to women, having sex with dudes in the night where nobody can see them, and then turn around condemning other gay men. Oh, right. That's not being gay. Right. Being gay means that you're a benevolent member of the community. You know what I mean? It's like, whether you're a hairstylist or a fireman or a cop or a teacher or whatever, gay people help others. They're benevolent members of the community. Somebody calling Mr. Obama gay, I'm like, no, he doesn't qualify. He doesn't even qualify to be a homosexual.
So you're basically saying it's the terminology that they're using. Now, before you dive into that other report, can you tell everybody about the angelic realm that came and they actually saw what happened, and the ramifications of that? I would like you to share that with everybody.
Okay, so back up to the 108 children, which I think was 3 weeks ago. I was so angry. I was screaming at everybody, cursing everybody on the good side, well, except for heaven, about why this had happened. And they had already, by the time I had calmed down, it's probably already into the next weekend, like Thursday, like now, because I think they already have 58 children. Pull up. 59 children they have now in 6 locations. But see, now I forgot the question. This is where I get spaced out and I get upset.
No, that's okay. The angelic realm.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
So for the 313 children they had, it was the blood moon, the full moon, the lunar eclipse, all of that. And I called to the angelic kingdom and I said, please do something about this. Is there any way that you have enough angels that you can go in and surround these men? And the answer was yes. And they brought down 350,000 angels.
Wow.
And at first it would completely freak them out. And they said, well, I hear this, well, I don't have sex right here in front of an angel, you know what I mean? And then they had to be reminded that they're destroying divinity, that they would probably be able to kill all the angels or whatever in their egoic, criminally insane minds. And then they came in anyway, and they gang raped and then brutally murdered all of those children while the angels were there, and the entire company of heaven watched this event. And it's all recorded. It's kept at the Hall of Justice. But heaven reminds me that there's a divine plan, which obviously I can't understand, because we don't understand how divinity works right now in our heads. And
right. It's hard for us to understand because of the atrocities that are going on. But I do believe that the fact that they were willing to see that, as you said, to actually come into that realm and that space, watching it, observing it, I think that that's a monumental turning point.
Well, they can handle it better too in heaven. They can look down because they've seen, because Mother God reminded me that over 100 million people have been killed in wars. And
Good.
To me, that's something different because a person chooses to go commit war crimes. These men and children, they choose to go to Iraq or Iran and or whatever, Afghanistan, and kill people so that people can do a heroin trafficking operation. That's different.
That's a good point.
The predators preying on children, that's far different than.
And you know, I wanted to add something else that I thought about the other day when I was thinking about you, is I've talked to a few people who, you know, they get migraines in a cyclical pattern, and they can't really figure out what's causing it. They've fixed their diet. They don't get vaccines. They're really healthy mentally, spiritually, all that. And they've just worked on it. And I've even worked with them on the system and cleared a lot of the mold and the bacteria and the fungus and all that. But what I'm recognizing with some of the people I've talked to is that it is associated with these mass traumas, these world traumas, where they start getting depressed and they feel they might get it like as a stomach ache or a migraine or something. And what I'm actually thinking is that the veil has become so much thinner that these mass child sacrifices, they can no longer be going on without us seriously starting to get impacted by it on a physical level. And I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yes. And one of the reasons is because the 1738 Dracos were providing an umbrella of protection for this type of behavior. In other words, it was cloaked and invisible to society. Okay, all the non-physicals are gone. Okay, and so they're left with the same rules that we all have now, karma, and we're all connected now. And that's another reason why you see if there's a shooting somewhere and all of a sudden 10 or 12 people say, now wait a minute, I see this. This is a fake shooting done by the government to convince us that this, guy with dark skin, you know what I mean? It's a dark skin, light skin thing, and they see right through that.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah. That's why people are seeing the truth so much more clearly now, because so much of that evil presence has been eliminated.
I agree. Well, tell us what else you feel is being successful. Have you had any successes? I know you can't necessarily stop this because it's so incredibly powerful, right? You're dealing with all these black magicians and...
Well, the black magicians are basically out of power now because the vibrations, the gamma radiation that's hitting us, the photons from the photon belt, it's just it's not a conducive reality anymore for their magic to work, because they've come in over and over again, and God kicked all their butts, and they're all afraid to come back because this energy that they're being filled with by God through me has just changed them everything. And now that we're doing this so everybody can see, if they go to get something to drink at a gas station, people are going to connect and say, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? What are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like
they're going to have that sense, about that individual. Right?
That happened to me at the bank. I went to my mom with the bank, and this woman, as soon as my soul hit her soul, she was couldn't even hardly do her job. She was starting to shake and stuff like this. And later I heard her say, wow, her son really gives me the creeps. And it's not that I'm giving her the creeps. It's that when I show up with my soul, somebody who's sensitive to that, okay, 579 children last week, and then 313, and then the Pope was given 14 children. You know what I mean? So they're getting the energy of oh my God, and people who've been asleep, it freaks them out. And they a lot of times think I'm the ones with the problem.
Yeah, but you know what else, Tori?
If I could.
Tori, you know what else? It's also because the amount of work that you do for the planet. And I found this to be true, that the more you're doing this sort of work, these sort of, ceremonies and intentions that are for the greater good of all, the more that's building your auric field, your grid, your your consciousness, etc. And so people just feel that. You know, you could be felt on the other side of the world because of the amount of work that you've done. No, seriously. Seriously. And you do it with such humility, and that's the most important thing, is your intentions are pure, your humility is there, and you so love the children, humanity. You're here to do that mission, and you never stop. You know, you never stop.
And paying so much away. But your earlier question was, what is the success part of this? Is the success part of this is the children returning. That's
okay. Wait, you're breaking up. So we need to clear this. Okay, so you're saying that the success story is that the children are actually being returned home.
Yes, not being entrapped in a box or inside of a monster reptilian like Dick Cheney.
Cool.
And if we could, before we close out, I'd like to bring up some of these numbers.
Sure.
That because they're not just numbers. And well, when the Pope, let's just call him the Pope. When the Pope came in, they had a special ceremony, and Obama had raped and murdered a child about 20 feet away from Bergoglio, the Pope. And Obama, at that time, he raped and murdered a 12-year-old girl, a Mexican girl, and her parents called her Annabelle. And that was the 247th child that he murdered, little Annabelle from Mexico. And the Pope had the 1981st child was a 9-year-old girl, and her DNA said that she was raped 286 times before. Well, that would be including the Pope, but she had been murdered 285 times by other men, gang raped. Then she was given to the Pope, and he raped her and killed her. But something which I consider really good was because then the Pope later was raping a 7-year-old boy named Juan Carlos, and Jesus Christ appeared right in front of him during the rape, and he had a heart attack.
Right on.
And, well, because those of you who don't know, the Vatican is a satanic Luciferian group of criminals that really have, the only association they have with Roman Catholic people is they're sucking their energy and their money out of them. They're just basically, Roman Catholics are basically victims to what's going on at the Vatican. Or you could say survivor mentality, or whatever the correct word to use is. Basically, that's all the Vatican does is steal energy and money. But, to go back to Indiana, this last weekend, Mitch Daniels, who's a former governor, and now I believe he's the president of Purdue, he murdered a 9-year-old girl named Jessica. And this was the 8th child he's murdered, the 54th, I think, child that he's raped. 54th, or I think it was 54 or 55. And it's programmed into people, and then they're also using the weapons, the sexualization weapons, to make men even more excited to want to rape kids. Wow. And they can beam this energy into you that will take you from a state of you can't even imagine having sex to within seconds later a man will be fully erect and just like we call it horned up or horny like crazy. And that's one of the reasons, how they get the men into it. And then, of course, well, you've already raped and murdered a child. You have to do what we say.
Right.
But on the federal level, because I went through Indiana, 45 cops in Indianapolis Municipal Police Department have raped a total of 114 children. State politicians, state senators from Indiana, and the representatives, there's 32 men that are politicians in our state that have raped a total of 131 children.
God.
And so, the list seems to just never stop. And then on the federal level, 299 men from the Pentagon have raped a child in my lab, and 287 have killed the child during rape. 287 employees of the Pentagon. And then I did some checking because if you remember do you remember when a lot of generals in this country were fired?
Yeah.
And everybody was
on
saying,
the East Coast. Yeah, I remember that.
Because they wouldn't throw Americans into the concentration camps. Well, I look back at those generals who were fired, and not a single one of them was a pedophile. I
Right
don't know
on.
how general without being a pedophile, because all the generals now are involved in this MyLab child trafficking.
See, it just goes to show you that there is another military force that does truly want to bring forth the protection and the honor and the dignity back to what they signed up for. You know?
I think I heard a lot of that going on Sunday
Yeah.
when the satellites went out, because 98% of the people who came into my home on Sunday were new, meaning they hadn't been here before, because they were sending in new troops, because they, you know, a lot of the Bushes, they don't want to come out because we've transfigured and done so much energy work on them that they're basically without power.
Good.
So they're sending the new ones in. A lot of people are freaking out that this is even going on. Well, I sent which brings me to Loretta Lynch,
Yeah.
who I don't know if her parents would ever hear this, and I wanted to look their names up again, but I would regret to tell her parents that she was murdered and replaced by a clone, who's a clone was also killed, but now she's a clone and she has a copy. So there's 2 clones out of 3 of Loretta Lynch, but it wasn't because she was involved in the child trafficking that they killed her. She had like a list of other things going on. She had, her sacred light content was 37%, the dark entity, most common level for dark entities. I didn't have time, but I'd like to send my condolences to her parents, because she, well, I think she was, they put her in China to recycle, because 37% is not enough to generate a tunnel of light, so they give you another chance.
So, Tori, that's a good question. Is people have asked me to ask you, how, when you say that you have been raped by Obama, they are curious, is it the real deal or is it just a clone? Because, you know, as a president, he's cloned a bunch of times.
He's had 6. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because there were 4. There were the original Obama, and he had 3 clones. And 4 of 4 Obama, because I couldn't figure out, it'd be like, so one of them would come in, it'd be like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he would bring Secret Service, and they would always rape me first, and then he would rape me. Because I had such a strong, after a while, I had such a strong aversion to him. As soon as he would penetrate me, I would pass out. That was just it. I was down for the count. It was too much for me. Having a man who raped and murdered children inside of me has dramatically changed me, and so, because I'm not only that, but I would see the children. I would see what they would do. You know, like one guy who raped me worked in the concentration camps in Germany, and I was watching him throw bodies onto a pile while he was penetrating me. Okay, and then I also saw him attack this human male and just rip his flesh right off his chest and his neck, and he was eating the man. So I'm witnessing this man who murdered somebody and cannibalized them while, you know, sodomy is occurring.
I don't even know how you're sane. I don't know how you're sane.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
I keep telling the universe, this is too much drama for me.
It is.
But I'd also like to give some people, like CIA employees have murdered over 13,000 children during forced intercourse. The White House staff, and these are figures from DNA and also from the Hall of Records and the Hall of Justice. The current administration and the Secret Service have raped a total of 4,507 children and murdered 506 of them, and that includes Obama. And the CEO of Forbes, top executives, virtually all of them, almost all CEOs, like this one guy, his name is Charles Ergen. He's just such a monster. He was here a couple times. He had a clone, but his clone got killed recently. But he's killed 64 children and raped 918. And that's what these rich men love to do, that because they feel like they're so powerful that they can do anything. And since they've had the protection and have gotten away with it, they think that's for eternal, but I don't. But they're almost like addicted to it because they can get away with it and have all these things. And then to go back to the government, there's this guy, Treasury Secretary, Jack Lew. He's raped 16, killed 7. John Kerry of the State Department's raped 56 children, murdered 4 of them. Yeah. Obama's now murdered 248 children. Bush Sr. is 516 children. Joe Biden has murdered 97 children while raping them. Ashton Carter, he's like one of the I think he's Secretary of Defense or one of those bullshit names they come up with. 87 children he's murdered during sex. John McCain has murdered 2 more children, bringing his total up to 38 children he's murdered while I mean, you can Google images of Secretary of Defense, and literally every man on that page has raped and murdered children. This is just so big with these reptilians
And
that
you can see
honestly,
them.
I don't know
You
how
can
it's
see their facial characteristics when you pull up the White House staff, all those that hold political positions. You can totally tell that they're reptilian.
Yeah. Well, it's not hard. Dark entity reptilians love killing humans, period.
No, but I just mean physically. You can actually see the very specific characteristics over and over and over again. I actually did a article one day. This is years ago. And I went through every single political figure. And I was taking their pictures and I was analyzing it. And I was like, oh my God, this is so obvious to me now. And my entire computer locked up. And when I got my computer back up, all that article was gone.
Yeah, thanks. They do that all the time. They were running around. He's going to do that interview. He's going to do that interview. They're all freaking out. And, things like that happen all the time where they don't want you to, or they love to put in child pornography into people's computers and then turn around and arrest them. And that's why I think that guy from Subway, someone told me he's from Indiana. I think his name was Jared. The guy that lost a bunch of weight and he's been on Subway commercials. Well, he was charged with child pornography. And I've looked at his DNA at least 10 times, and every time it's negative. Every time I don't see any pedophile behavior in this man. Something happened to him that they wanted him out of the picture. And so they just put stuff on your computer, and then, that's it.
Maybe he knows too much. Now, I think one of the burning questions that we're all wondering is, I remember the last time I interviewed you way back in the early part of the year, you were saying that the rapes and the sacrifices were diminishing. And now they seem to be really ramping up. Do you agree with that? And do you feel that it's going to start slowing down again? And, what is your feeling on that?
Well, I can't do future questions because, I mostly read evidence. Basically, that's what I do.
Right.
As somebody, because I don't call myself a psychic, I just read evidence in multiple locations.
Right.
But the numbers vary because it was like back in August the 14th or August the 4th, they had 14 children. And then that weekend, that's the 521 children that all went in Dick Cheney, but now are all back home. And then the weekend of the 20th, the 19th and the 20th, were only 3 children murdered. The weekend before that, the August 12th and 13th, only 4 children. And the 5th and 6th of August, 7 children. And so, but then a couple days later, 9th and 10th was 521. So the numbers tend to fluctuate wildly.
So it's doing this.
And they really follow astrology. And so, like I call it bloody moon, bloody children, that were the lunar eclipse where they did 313 children. And the numbers fluctuate wildly. They really do, because has dropped off, and that's one thing that kicked me in the butt when it come back with that 108, because they had put the block on me, and if there's only like 2 or 3 children, you know what I mean? They purposely put this energy in you to forget stuff, so I forget to do things. You know what I mean? And stuff. And I thought it had completely stopped, and then when the 108 happened, then it was like, then I cleared myself out. Oh, wait a minute, it's been going on. I've just been blocked from it. But once the numbers went back up.
Well, you also mentioned, tell them what you were talking about regarding Laura Walker.
That one quote
today, I thought that was really interesting.
That one quote that she said today really hit me. And I wish I could pull it up.
I actually have it here. I pulled it up deliberately for this. And you were talking about, her whole report today, it says, Mercury stations direct, clarity and cohesion begin to return. We begin to understand and integrate what Mercury going back into the past has been teaching us. Now it says releasing and retiring things is a prominent feature of today's energy. So no surprise that we're doing this interview just very spontaneously. And it says the energy helps us complete tasks, return things to their place, and clear up confusion, which is quite helpful during the very important 100 hours of balsamic moon phase. Okay, so, and then you were talking about, it says, going further, this symbol brings exactly what first responders of consciousness need when a mass trauma response is preparing to be played on humanity. This symbol brings the calm inner place of resonance with God from which the power of equilibrium within chaos is found. Isn't that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes,
so,
because, and I think that has already started, because something happened different last Sunday, a few days ago Sunday, that the dynamics have changed so much. And it's almost like the dark is not in control anymore. That the dark is basically on the run, because so many people now know what they're doing. Because I had earlier decided to go, instead of just putting things out on YouTube or appealing to people, because a lot of people laugh. I've written on DARPA's website that I was raped while they murdered 54 children. He's like, oh, ha, 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 ha. Very funny, which I don't find very funny. So I decided to go to send my beliefs and thoughts to the Attorney General, to the White House,
right on.
and explaining to the staff that, okay, well, Mr. Obama's just raped and murdered his 247th child, you know what I mean, and things like that. And that, when I sent this one to the Attorney General, it got, well, not her, she came in, well, her clone came in, but her clone left right away, because I was like, well, all the other clones are dead, so you've got literally minutes on this planet, and she was gone, like in a second. But
Well,
so many more people of the government that didn't know now, and that's, I think, one of the biggest things that's changed.
I do too, and I'm going to say a couple of things. The guidance that I've received regarding a turning point on this planet, a true turning point was, in my opinion, in July. There was a radical turn for the better. I've received that, and I've actually received that from multiple other people confirming it, to say, hey, what kind of intel are you getting, that kind of thing. There were some major victories on the plane of being able to penetrate areas that they had not been able to before, especially regarding technology. Okay, now also Simon Park's assistance with CERN and all of the creating consciousness people that work with him, including myself, that was a huge win, along with all the other things that nobody even knows about. I mean, all of the people that are working the light out there to try to get this job done, so to speak. But I also think that we must not continue to ignore this. And I'm sorry to all of you ahead of time that this has been a very graphic and disturbing interview, from the standpoint we're really getting hard facts, numbers, that kind of thing, if you really get what Tori does. But at the same time, we all know this is probably the biggest core indicator of what our society brings forth, what energies are disturbing and destroying all of us, everything that we value, especially a beautiful child. So I felt very compelled to do this, because I would like all of you to daily, let's not do this group meditation thing, because you guys all know how I feel about that. But let's do like a daily thing where we are commanding and intending and requesting that this finally be completed once and for all, that this be stopped, that all of this horrific sexual molestation and blood sacrifice, and I should say flesh sacrifice, that this finally be stopped now. But guess what? I keep being told, Tori, until the majority of us ask for this and really intend that we know this is going to happen, you know, we need to feel, number one, that we absolutely know this is happening. Like, you have to have a knowingness that this is really happening, which I think we're already finally there. But number two, that we really have the desire to not kind of turn our heads, because it's such a horrible topic to discuss, and literally step into that request every single day, commanding it as a master would, and saying, we have the authority to stop this. assist us now.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
And it's going to happen if all of us step in. We're also caught up in our busy lives, me included, where, if you just did that, can you imagine if each one of us just one time a day stopped for 1 minute? I'm getting huge goosebumps on this, by the way, and just stopped for 1 minute and said, I command that all blood sacrifice, child sacrifice, molestation, etc., come to a screeching halt, and that those beings that are doing this are returned back to source or creator to be used for more positive protective energy. I love to use that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So,
and another thing people can do too now, if they don't want to connect to an individual person, they can just say, either I invoke the ray of divine justice into everyone, or they can say, Dear Mother and Father God, please use me as a tool and fill all these people up who are bringing harm to others with the divine ray of justice and whatever light. Because if you don't know how to do it, you can just simply ask for it and it will be done. You can ask the angels, or you can ask Mother and Father God, you can ask the entire company of heaven, and it will be done. And it's just, the way I see it is peeling off in layers.
it is.
Just a layer of evil, another layer, another layer, another layer. But the good point to me is the whole solar system is cleared, except for Earth. Mother God said this is the only planet in the universe where this is happening, which is good to know, because if there's 800 million species of people, let alone how many there are of us, at least it's only happening here. But before you go, you asked me to research a question about blood.
Yes.
And
yes.
There was a two-part question, and one was how is the blood of clones different than those of us who have souls?
Okay.
And then the other question I think you had is basically what's happening to the blood.
Can I just preface before you answer? Let me just explain to everybody where this came about. Steve was doing some research, and he was looking into blood because of the child sacrifice thing. And he started pondering about the fact that when you go into a hospital and you get your blood drawn, or you go to a blood bank, basically they take a whole vial. Depending on the panels, if it's 5 different things, they're going to take 5 different vials of blood. But if you talk to most people that do that sort of research, they only need like 1 drop of blood. Very typically, they'll rarely use more than 1 or maybe a handful max of drops of blood. So where's the rest of the blood going? And so this is kind of where he was pursuing this question. We started talking to Tori about it and wondering, what is it about the blood? Because when they're doing the child sacrifice, they want that fresh blood. And we were trying to figure out, we already know about the connection of the soul. We already know that they carry a much higher light quotient, but we were trying to figure out about what does the blood do for the individual as far as, keeping them going, nutrition, that kind of thing, if you want to call it nutrition. Anyway.
It is. It's food. We are food to the reptilians. Not all of them, just the ones that are here, because there are good reptilians. It's like any people, there's good ones and bad ones.
Yes.
And the difference between a clone and a person is the energy, because the blood is it carries all the fuel for our body. It's literally there's a whole universe in our blood. Okay, and the soul is in constant communication with our blood. Our soul is in constant communication with our entire physical bodies.
Right.
A lot of us don't realize that. But a person can say, I consciously connect to my body. I want to know, why do I have this pain? And it'll come to you. And if you're new to that, it'll take probably a little longer. But that's what I do, because to find out, they've been injecting this needle in me, which is causing these purpley blue lesions. And, I wanted to know if it was cancer, so I called my body, and they're like, no. And then heaven told me what it was, but I just couldn't comprehend it. So we can communicate with our bodies. But the difference is a blood that has a soul is divinely ordained, okay? Meaning that when in the process of creation in our universe, when a person is born with a soul, that blood is divinely ordained. Okay, a clone, the blood is basically a chemical, because clones are produced out of a sea of chemicals. And another thing I found fascinating, because you asked me about it was 4 Obamas that raped me. And I didn't even really understand clones even existed. And how I found out about the clones was, and which I find interesting, is not all the makeup of each clone is exactly the same. In other words, like, because I was reading one Obama, and then I saw Obama on the news, and I read his DNA, and it was not the same, and I freaked out. I was like, am I inaccurate? Because I want the highest level of accuracy possible. That's why I check things over and over and over again from different sources to make sure that it's accurate. But like one of the Obamas was a 4-species person, meaning he was reptilian, amphibian, insectian, and a little bit human, whereas another Obama clone was mostly reptilian, some insectian, and the rest human, and yet another one was maybe just reptilian and human. Interesting. But they all looked alike, which I don't do cloning, so I have no idea how that's possible.
Well,
but that's how I literally discovered, because Obama was coming in. He would come in at 9 o'clock with Secret Service, and then the rapes would happen, and then he would leave. And then, like, maybe at 10:20, he would come back. And I'm just like, what the heck, dude? You were just here. Of course, they didn't tell me it was clone with different CIA or different Secret Service agents. And sometimes he would come in 4 at a time, and I was just like, what is this guy? I mean, is he that attracted to me personally that, he could come in and rape me 4 times in one day? And the answer was no. When I went to the Hall of Research, the attendant comes up to me, and I was asking about the clones, and she goes, oh, yeah, there's like 2 or 3 of everybody. I was just like, what? I was like, oh, my God.
Well, David, I did a lot of research on that. The other thing that I've studied on cloning is they typically will put a piece or like a fragment of Obama's original soul into each clone.
I don't know if that's
I've read something along those lines. So that would indicate why they would have different DNA readings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say almost anything's possible at this point. I wouldn't say nothing. I think it's silly to say this cannot happen in our universe.
Absolutely not.
So I don't know. I mean, I've heard of soul fragmentation before, but I just, my focus is mostly dealing with these people in our government. That's basically all my time is spent dealing with these people who come in from the government and attack. And what they do, like the reptilians have a nest below my bed, so they do a lot of things to me while I'm sleeping. But it has gotten a lot better. I mean, it's gotten a lot better. I haven't been raped for quite a while now, and they haven't put snakes in my body anymore.
Good. So there is progress. Progress, and there are things. But the main thing Tori really wants all of us to do is to really start stepping up and supporting his work through, just invoking that proclamation that you just stated. And can you say one more time?
What? I would suggest to people to be careful how they get involved.
Yeah, totally. But they can invoke that just walking to the store.
Yes. And another thing is just being able to connect to the truth. That's a huge first step, because the more people who are connected to the truth, the more everyone knows. And also, I'd like to go back to the second part of your question about the blood. It wasn't just the energy, but it was what's happening. So I went to the only agency I know of that collects blood is Red Cross. And I'm sure there are others, because there's like a new laboratory in Fort Wayne, and I checked their DNA because they are blood connection or a collection service.
Right.
But they themselves are not involved with the reptilians. The Red Cross, however, when I started looking at the CEO's DNA, 52% of the blood being collected by the Red Cross is being given to the reptilians.
Oh, that's what we were wondering.
Yeah. It was a connection to the truth. Because you're not a person to sit around and do theories, because theory is a waste of time. it's connection to the truth that gives the fastest results. And to do that, all you have to do is say, I want to be connected. It's my intent to be connected to the truth. I only want to know the truth. And people's opinions are great, but I want to only know the truth. And that's a great way. I did that years ago. And it's, you know, like you said, when I look at somebody, I see them for what they really are. But I read the percentages, because it's easy for me to see a reptilian, dark entity reptilian human, is because a person comes up and is like, ew, you know what I mean? It's like, ew, I don't even want to look at this person. You know what I mean? Somebody just gives you the creeps. And
I gotta
a lot
tell
of
you, I think most of us are grateful that we don't see what you see.
yeah. But one of the physical indicators there's something called a widow's peak, which is like a triangle on the head of hair. That's one indication of a reptilian. A lot of it's in their eyes. And
Very
they have
very beady,
fake
typically
eyes.
close together, and very dark, usually a dark brown. And the other thing that I started noticing, they usually have a hook nose. Their nose kind of comes down, and they have no lips, hardly at all.
Yeah, and a lot of them appear to be frowning when they're smiling. If you look at senators, military people, the highest ranking ones, you know, a lot of times they'll have a frown on their face, you know, in a normal
That's true.
normal environment or whatever.
And their ears can typically be pointy. They're shaped kind of all the same. And the best thing, if you are not familiar with this topic, is to go take a look at George Bush Sr. And he is the classic characteristics of a reptilian. If you just take that and you compare that to almost every politician out there, it doesn't matter whether they're overweight or not. Just look at the basic characteristics, the shape of their nose. I don't know how to describe it, but they have a very similar type of nose. You know, like the center part is very distinguished compared to the nostrils. And you'll see how it's time and time and time again, they're all very similar.
Yes.
It's crazy.
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
But, you know, I want everyone also, the other reason we're doing this is Tori's been getting hammered with emails, you know, where are you, what's going on? I've been getting emails from many of you. And, you know, just everybody know that this is what he's committed to do. This is his number one commitment to the world, not necessarily always doing DNA reports, which are gratis, and they took an immense amount of time and energy from Tory. In fact, he was just telling me this morning, because of being so exhausted and being up all night, I mean, how many hours of sleep do you get, if you get any at all?
Well, usually, a lot of times they wake me up about every 15 minutes, because they come in and they do this thing called courting, where they attach to you. And it's either one of two ways. Either they attach to you to steal your life force energy, or they attach to you and sexually excite you and then feed off of that energy. Ugh. It's basically those one or two. But a lot of times, like, you know, one time I woke up and I had like over 160 people attached to me while I was sleeping.
So they're basically sucking off of your energy field.
Yeah, but a lot of them don't
massive,
like it, because I've created an intent where Mother and Father God will send the most sacred and divine energies through me to them right when they connect.
Fantastic.
So they're not getting the energy that they used to get off of me, because I've learned from that, and now we're, you know, taking steps.
You know, Tori, just this discussion right here has got to be assisting other light workers out there. And I feel that because of the trials and tribulations that you go through on a daily basis, I should say a minute-by-minute basis, you're learning tips and techniques as to how to kind of get through some of these difficulties. And a lot of times you'll share stuff with me, and I'm able to take that and help with my work that I do. So I'm just hoping that this is assisting everyone. Again, you know, Tori and I are both extremely apologetic that it has to be a topic that is so vile, you know.
Yeah,
but at the
there aren't any words.
Yeah.
Vulgar, vile.
Yeah, but
if I could sum it up. Oh, and there's also Eric. I have another message. I don't know if they'll hear this, but there's a man named Eric Garner that was killed by police in New York, and he came in from heaven, and we chatted for a little bit. And he says, you're really brave. And I start laughing. When people tell me I'm brave, I just start laughing. I'm like, no, I'm pissed off. I really I don't think bravery has anything to, like, if I call the attorney general and tell her, why isn't she doing anything about all these children being raped and murdered? That's not bravery. That's just me so angry about this whole situation. But if I could summarize in a quick way is, I was taken to a place called My Labs, that are owned by the Bush family, operated by DARPA and the CIA. They did a lot of human experiments on me. I was injected with HIV 187 times, including all 77 mutations. And when I went back, and they still saw that I was negative, because I went through 187 HIV tests, and every one of them said I was negative. Why? Because I removed the virus from my body. It's not even really that hard to do. I've done it so many times. But other things, I've witnessed children who are strapped to tables, who they just shove a huge needle into this child. They like to inject children with Roundup, I can't pronounce it, glycophase.
Yeah.
Whatever the name of glycophase, or whatever the real name of Roundup is. They do viruses. They create viruses in these labs, inject them into children. It's basically like walking into some kind of medical facility where they would have a mouse in every cage, except it's children. It's human children. And just witnessing of that, and then I've witnessed also, more memories have come back, where these big vats where they would process the children as food for the Insectians, and they would put these bodies of the children after they were raped and murdered into these big vats of chemicals, and the Insectians would swim in this, and they would absorb the nutrients through their skin. But now, since the Insectians are gone, they're processing the children almost in the same way, but now they're putting them into, Cargill is one of the main groups, that they're taking these children and they're putting them in the Cargill meat supply. Last time I checked, it was like 3,150 children have gone into the Cargill meat supply.
God.
This plant in Minneapolis, there's a plant near Minneapolis, Minnesota, where this is happening. These are the things I've witnessed, besides, because I'm not running around screaming, oh, this is what they did to me, this is what they did to me. You know what I mean? Because it's not that I'm saying I'm not important or my needs aren't important. It's just that I think my needs are being trumped by these children who are being killed by the hundreds every weekend, or sometimes it's a lower number. But, and I've been to 14 of these locations where I experienced things firsthand, and I was trying to figure out how I even got out of these places, and I was told that seven times I was rescued by the Galactics, who pulled me out, and other times that I've pulled myself out. Like if I've been pulled in astrally everything up, astral, etheric, mental, causal, all of my other bodies were gone there, and and then I would pull myself out of that, and I would bring myself home. But then what the problem with that is, then they would all follow me, and then they would come into my home, and then the experiments would continue.
Right.
Usually, like one time they injected me with so much liquid, I had it was like a tennis ball on my butt. It was this huge lump, and I hit me right over there, and I took 3 steps, and I collapsed on the bed, and I couldn't move. I think I was down for several hours. I couldn't move. I had this huge lump of liquid in my body.
I mean, I just want everyone to understand, this is in this reality. He's waking up from these events, and he has all of these types of marks and experiences on his body. God, one time you called me up, and you were peeing black urine, and I mean, it's on and on and on and on. So, again, I really want to end this on a note. Do not try and go and do this on your own if you don't have the experience or the knowledge or the know-how of how to do it. Tori has been gifted, well, we should put that in parentheses, I know it's a tough one, but he's been gifted with the ability to continue to come back and give it another whirl. The goal for us today is to bring the awareness of sending that ray of divine justice all the way across the world to every single solitary politician, world leader, CEO, banker, anyone who has anything to do with this child trafficking ring. And it can go all the way down, as you know, to just even a mother and father within, you know, a ancestral line of sexual abuse, because that's what they use, you know. So let's do this, guys. We can do this. They want us to do this. And I appreciate that, Tori. That's awesome. And
I appreciate you too. I'm so grateful.
Well, no, will you make sure you write that out so I can put that with this interview?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So do you feel complete? Have you shared all your reports?
Well, the majority of them. But it's just gonna, I don't know, I'll continue how long, but you know, like the last time I checked, let me clear myself out. See, that's funny, because before I would have to clear myself out several times, 100 times a day, because they would keep doing this stuff. But lately, they're not showing up as much.
Good.
Like they were here in mass right before we were, you know, going to begin. But they haven't blocked my head yet.
Good.
So let me pull up quantity of DNA, 58 children that they have now for this weekend's Gang Rape and Murder Festival. And I just hope, well, I've been saying I hope it ends soon for years, but it doesn't seem to be. And it seems like things are getting darker, but I think it's just more and more stuff is coming up. So,
you know what? I don't even remember who said this, but they said with these massive waves of light that are coming in, they said, do not forget, not only is this accelerating the light, it's accelerating ourselves. It's accelerating our illumination and our ability to see things better, but it's also accelerating the dark. Okay, it's ramping them up too. So, you know, always remember it's darkest before the dawn. We are at that period in history. I continue to remind people all the time. It's darkest before the dawn. The good thing is we're not at the semi-darkness before the dawn. We're really literally at the darkest before the dawn moment. So we can do this. Let's take these 58 children so far, this is Friday, and let's send this message out to all politicians. Again, I ask you, I plea, do not try to do this by yourself if you do not know what's going on with this sort of technique and tactic. Please do not do this, okay? And again, Tori, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know that so many people are very grateful because they can't do what you do. I can't do what you do. And I
but you know
what you do.
As people have their DNA activated, as we go through this process we're calling Ascension, everybody is going to be able to do what I'm doing now. I just had 20 years of training and working with light, and I knew how to go to, because when this started happening, I went to Father God and I wrote new contracts.
Right.
And so that they couldn't violate my contract, or, you know, then they couldn't kill me or whatever. And, but we're all going to be like this. Very soon, when we're fully conscious, we have over 1 million strands of DNA activated. Like 1,000,007 comes up to all the time, and we'll be able to connect with everybody. We'll be able to see what they've done. All the evidence of everything is recorded in so many different places that soon everybody's going to be doing what. There's not going to be any more crime, because people are going to know as soon as you commit the crime, everybody's going to know.
Yeah, they've been
predicting. So it's not just me; it's everybody.
They've been talking about this for a long time. That, you know, you won't be able to get away with deceit or lies or lack of honesty and that kind of thing, because we're all just going to know. You know. Yeah. And that's how cool is that? You know. So
and that's what I'd like now. Is I just want people to be able to connect to the truth. Not look graphically at these children being raped and murdered, but if you can sense that this is going on, just one of the safest routes to go would be just call Mother and Father God and tell them. And because they already know everything about you, but when you voice your opinion and say, "Dear Mother and Father in heaven, I want this stopped on this planet. I want these children to be saved. Please do something." Well, they're already working on it over time. They said the entire company of heaven was finalizing the details of the rest. And
Well, this is certainly not going to hurt. If there's enough of us, we're all masters out there, guys. We're all up and coming masters. They work with us a great deal, and I remind people we kind of discount what we bring forth. So it's very important for us to remember that just that intention and that invocation alone, it can move mountains. It can literally move mountains. So,
I invoke the ray of divine justice in us all.
so say it one more time before I let you go.
I invoke the ray of divine justice in us all.
I invoke the ray of divine justice in us all.
You know, before we go, let's do a healing prayer
Okay.
for everyone that listens to this.
Fantastic. Because it's been very intense, graphic information.
To do a little cleansing at the end.
Yes.
Dear Mother and Father God in heaven, I ask that anyone who listens to this please fill them up with the sacred super light, and also bring the sparkling emerald green healing energy into every molecule, cell, DNA, energy particle and wave, subatomic particles and waves, and also into the core of purity pulsating in each and every electron of the minds, bodies, and souls to provide complete healing. And I also ask that we all be surrounded by the silver violet flame, which transfigures and transmute all negative energies into the light. That we refresh and renew our cords of light, and we ask to be surrounded by angels when negativity is near. Thank you.
Thank you. And so it is. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks so much for letting me get my opinions out and my beliefs and everything. And I hope this comes to an end soon.
Well, I love you, Tori, and I know the world loves you for who you are and what you're willing to do, and honestly, the courage that you display to the rest of the world. So you're an example to me to keep doing what I do. And for all of you out there, if you are unfamiliar with Galactic Connection, please check out our daily blog. It runs 365 days a year. You can sign up for the newsletter. It'll give you a really good pulse on what's going on as far as the shifts and changes that are assisting us in the move of progress, right, Tori? And also check out our implant removal process. It's world renowned. It's outstanding. It's way more than implant removal. It's really life-changing. And we've got so many other cool things. We're just about to announce the classes, so hang tight. It's getting very close. And I have some new essences to release that I'm really excited about. The one that I'm coming up with is called Stepping Out. It came through me because I found that the entire spiritual community, we had all become hermits. You know, we all had kind of cocooned ourselves to deal with the abrasiveness of this planet. And I see that time and time and time again in my work with each of you individually. So I'm looking forward to releasing that. We just have a lot of stuff going on. So stay tuned. Bless you all. Love you all. Honored to be here to serve you all. And we hope you will check us out next week. Same time, same channel. BBS Radio Station 2. Tuesday afternoons from 3 to 4:55. You guys take care and have a wonderful weekend. Let's make this the best change we've ever heard about, because Tori's going to give us an update, I hope. Okay? Let's see what we can do. Let's prove to ourselves our own authority and power. I hear this right now. They're like, yes! Okay? So let's do this. Okay.
Thank you, dear.
Oh, thank you. And we love you. You guys take care. Lots of love. Bye.